Chronicles of a Gooner. Like and subscribe. Chronicles of a Gooner. Harry Symeou time. Arsenal. Come on, you Gunners. Arsenal. Chronicles of a Gooner.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to the Chronicles of a Gooner with me, Harry Symeou. Hope you are all well and surviving this unbearable cold that has gripped the UK. Yes, I know it's the most British thing to do in the world to start off by talking about the weather, but it is bloody freezing today. It is absolutely freezing. It's horrible. You shouldn't have to go to work in this. You shouldn't have to leave the house in this. And you would not believe how happy I was this morning when my wife said, I'll do the school run. It's okay. You stay at home with the baby. I thought, yes, thank you. I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying in the warm. Yeah, it is really, really cold. And I think it's a little bit cold in terms of news today as well. It's not the busiest news day, which is understandable given that Arsenal, of course, have a game coming up in a couple of days' time. We've got Liverpool at Emirates Stadium on Thursday, which for me feels like a really, really big game. And we're going to preview that game on tomorrow's episode. On Thursday morning, I'll bring you my lineup and all the rest of it. We'll do the normal pre-match content that we do. I figured today would be a good time, given it's a bit of a slow news day, to take a bunch of your questions and thoughts from the live chat. That's always fun to do, and we always end up going down some interesting paths in terms of the conversations. But also, I thought it'd be good to just summarize what to expect from Arsenal in this January window. Now, the reason I say that is because if I go through the comment sections on YouTube or any of my social media platforms, one of the most common questions I've been asked, I would say, over the last 3 or 4 days is, are we signing anyone? When are we signing Rodrigo? It's another one that I keep getting, but I can tell you, I think it's highly unlikely that Arsenal are going to sign Rodrigo. But that's one of the most common questions. What are the plans for this window? Are Arsenal going to be active? And if they are going to be active, which Mikel Arteta tells us they're at least alert to what's going on and they are sort of actively open to doing things, then what are the positions that need addressing? Which part of the team could do with a little bit more reinforcement? Because it's all well and good, like sitting there as a fan going, we need to sign someone. Because we get that a lot, don't we? You know, football fans during transfer windows lose all logic and just literally scream for signings. And we have a whole summer of that. And then we have it in January for a bit as well. Obviously, in January, when things are going well, there's less noise. And things are going well for Arsenal right now. So there's not the kind of noise that we experienced, for example, last January when it was clear that we needed a striker, or when it was clear that we were short in certain areas, and when it was clear that we weren't good enough as a collective in terms of the bigger picture of our season. You look at it this time around and the feeling is very, very different, and rightly so. But I think it's worth just outlining my understanding of what the club are looking to do this January, if anything at all. And if they were to move for someone, what would that look like positionally, and what could we expect? So we'll do that as well on today's pod. Big thank you to everybody who is joining us live on the show. I really, really do appreciate you guys being with us. Thank you so, so much. If you're with us on YouTube and you haven't done so already, please hit the like button. That really, really does help. And subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. We're not a million miles away from 50,000 these days. We're on 47,000 and something. I'd love to, by the end of the season, get to 50,000. That would just be amazing on YouTube. On the audio platforms, we are flying. So a massive thank you to everybody that tunes in via Apple or Spotify. If I could just ask, if you haven't done so already, please do leave us a review. And we're also flying on Patreon. Yes, Patreon. Get over to patreon.com/the Chronicles of a Gooner and you can sign up and become a patron and support the podcast for just £3 per month. You get access to exclusive content You'll also get access to all of our episodes completely ad-free, as well as membership to our Discord server. We did unlock our Sunday Patreon episode to the masses, and we did that in honor of Enzo Fernandez's late goal at the Etihad. I thought it was worth sharing that joy and that positive vibe and feeling with the wider Chronicles of a Gooner community. But going forward, obviously, Patreon pods, most of the time, with the exception of a few when we're feeling good, or we want to just give those that are maybe free members an opportunity to experience what we do on Patreon, so that they can then decide whether or not it's for them. The majority of those shows, though, are locked and behind a paywall. So if you want to access them, that's the way to do it. Okay, you know what? Let's start with what to expect from Arsenal in the January window. Will Andrea Berta be busy, or will Andrea Berta have his feet up with a nice glass of fine Italian red wine? Look, my understanding of the situation is that while Mikel Arteta keeps saying that we are active, we're always open to opportunities, we're always open to the market, etc., etc., my understanding is that there are no concrete plans, and yes, here's that phrase again, there are no concrete plans at Arsenal to go out and make a major signing during this January transfer window. Could Arsenal be working behind the scenes to put certain things in place ahead of the summer? We know, based on recent experiences, that Arsenal have in the past done deals, or at least begun the process and started the ball rolling on deals months and months in advance. So I wouldn't rule out the possibility that Arsenal are looking at the summer already, looking at certain targets, looking at certain players, and maybe putting in some of the groundwork to put themselves in a position where the summer comes along, they're ready to execute on those deals, having done a lot of the heavy lifting already. But in terms of bringing in a significant signing in January, I believe it to be highly unlikely. Now, that doesn't mean impossible, but I believe it to be unlikely. And that's a lot to do with the timing. Arsenal's injury crisis, it feels like, has eased up, touch wood. Okay. Got to be really, really careful not to jinx that. But it feels like Arsenal's injury crisis has eased up just at the right time. We've crossed into the new year. We're in a really, really good position. People often talk about the second half of the season as being the business end. I would argue that we can wait a little bit longer even before we start calling it the business end of the campaign. But it's really, really important that Arsenal have as many of their key players available right now. And we do. Okay. People are coming back. People have returned. People are still finding their way into their peak condition. Gabriel Jesus and various others, you could argue, are still not quite at 100%, but they're back. And therefore, the need for Arsenal to go out in this window and spend big money, I think, is significantly reduced. The fact that we went to Bournemouth the other day and there was no Ethan Nwaneri in the squad, no Kai Havertz in the squad, that says to me that we're pretty well stocked at the moment across the board. Because if you can go away from home in the Premier League and you've got the luxury, and it is a luxury, of leaving two players of that quality and class out of the squad entirely, that says a lot. And there's no Max Dowman in the picture at the moment because he's injured. There's no Christian Mosquera at the moment because he's injured. There's no Ricardo Calafiori. So we still got players to return in those defensive areas. And obviously Max Dowman adds another string to our attacking bow, if you like. But the point I'm trying to make is that when everybody's available, and I know that it's very rare that you can have everybody available all at the same time, but when the vast majority are available, this squad is really, really well stacked. If we go through it, right, goalkeeping department, David Raya, Kepa Arrizabalaga, we've got as good a second choice goalkeeper as you can find. Go on to right back, you've got Jurriën Timber, brilliant. Ben White, excellent. You move into the center of the defense. Again, when everybody's fit and available, you've got Saliba, Gabriel, Mosquera, Nkapie, Calafiori, White or Timber can go in there. Lots and lots of centre-back options. You move over to the left-hand side. You could play Calafiori, you could play Nkapie, you could play Miles Lewis-Skelly. You move into the middle of the park, and you've got Rice, Zubimendi, Odegaard, Norgard, Marino, Nwaneri, Eza. There's lots and lots of options there. I would argue that we could maybe do with one more midfielder in an ideal world. That's the one position where sometimes I look at it and I think when Rice is out, for example, or when Zubimendi's out, because they're so, Rice is a great all-rounder and Zubimendi's such a specific type of player at the base of our midfield in terms of what his skill set looks like. I do feel like maybe we could do with one more of those, but that's probably the only area, because then you move into the front line and I'm looking on the right, Saka, Madueke, Dauman, Waneri could even play there. I'm moving into the centre forward position. Gyökeres, Havertz, Jesus, Martinelli could go there. Trossard could play a false nine. You look on the left-hand side, Trossard, Martinelli, Eze, Madueke could play there. We've got so many good players and so much competition right now that to sit here and sort of scream from the rooftops, we have to do business. We have to do business in this window. It feels like to be claiming that would show a complete detachment from the reality of the situation. Arsenal went massive in the summer. As a result of that, I'd imagine there is a reluctance from a financial perspective to go crazy. But if the opportunity was to present itself, do I think that Arsenal would take it? I think the way the season's gone so far, in terms of having all the problems that we have, yet being in the position that we are today, I think that will give the club encouragement that this very well could be our year. And if you believe it's your year and you feel like a transfer is going to tip the balance and get you over the line, then you do it, don't you? And Arsenal have shown, I think, incredible ambition over the last few years when you talk about spending, with the exception of maybe 2 transfer windows in which we were really underwhelmed. Generally speaking, we've done well as a football club. And you know what really kind of indicates this to me as well? Okay, so I was talking to a friend of mine. He's been on this podcast before, Dan DeLuca, Spurs fan, big Spurs fan. I would argue hates Arsenal with every fiber of his being, okay? But we were having a conversation the other day, a really honest and open conversation about both of our 2 clubs. And he said something to me like this. It was along these lines. He said, Arsenal have committed to going and winning the Premier League. And so if they get there this season, and he thinks we will, then that would be what they deserve. Because as a football club, they made a decision 4 or 5 years ago, we're going to go and win this league again for the first time in coming up to 20 years. We're going to go and do it. We're going to go and make it happen. And we're going to fully commit to it. And he talked about how the commitment is so clear that you can see it in the way that this team's been built. Nobody is safe from the evolution of this team. Everybody thought that Aaron Ramsdale was going to be our number 1 for years and years to come. And a better option comes along, and we were ruthless enough to make that change. You think about some of the other players that we've moved on. You think about the fact that we gave right at the start of this project, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, this new lucrative contract. And very shortly after that, we changed it. We changed our minds. We got rid of him. He talked about how Jurriën Timber came in and, we had Ben White, who everybody thought was the best right back around. And there was no need to get a sort of a replacement in, and there probably wasn't that many upgrades available, yet we found one. And what he was talking about was that as a football club, and Mikel Arteta gets loads of praise, and sometimes, yes, it's right to focus on the manager, the coach, who's been the driving force behind a lot of this, but you also have to zoom out and look at the bigger picture. And I think I've felt this even more so this week when looking at the crap that's going on at Chelsea and at Manchester United, where their structures are super problematic. Enzo Maresca leaving is largely down to the structure at Chelsea. Enzo Maresca being restricted and limited to what he can achieve is largely down to their structure. Ruben Amorim literally sat in a press conference and went full Kevin Keegan rant on the Manchester United structure and hierarchy, and the next day he's gone. I'm not saying everything's been perfect at Arsenal or that every decision's been correct. What I am simply saying is that Arsenal are in a really, really good place, and that's down to a number of people. That's down to a number of people. It's not just Mikel. It's not just Andrea Berta. It's not just Richard Garlick. It's not just all the amazing people that work behind the scenes. It's not just the players. As a collective, we're a football club that's in a really healthy place and position. And the only thing that's missing is that silverware to crown it off. And I believe that that's coming. I really, really do. I believe that it's coming. I believe that we're nearly there. And I believe that we will, come the end of the season, think finally, we've got the reward for all the hard work that's happened over the last few years. So when I look at the squad and I look at the group, I feel really, really confident in it. I've got a real belief in it. And I've said many, many times that if we're going to win it this year, Mikel Arteta has to get things right from his point of view. In previous years, I sort of had a little bit more sympathy for him because I looked at it and I went, well, you don't actually have the tools. Did you make mistakes? Yes, you did. But do you have the tools to actually achieve what we're all sitting there hoping that you do? Or would it be one of those situations and scenarios where we need a load of relief? We need a load of luck along the way. And we need a load of the sort of factors that at times are out of our control or are always out of our control to go our way. This time, I feel like there is no excuse. And that's why I've talked many, many times this season about how my hope turned into expectation after that summer transfer window. And I think if we're going to get over the line, it will be largely down to what we did in the summer, but also it will be because Mikel Arteta, for the most part, and he's not going to get every single decision right. Nobody can, nobody does. But for the most part, got it right in terms of rotating, finding the right balance, picking the right solutions to solve the right problems, etc., etc. So we're in a really good place. And I've been through the squad just there for you, like off the top of my head, without even looking at it, without even writing it down. And I feel confident and comfortable in most areas of the park. I said if there was one signing that I would make, it'd probably be a ball-playing defensive type of midfielder. I think that's the one thing we're missing. I think when Norgard comes in, it's not quite the same in terms of quality. And I know I'm going to get absolutely battered by some of you for saying that, because for whatever reason, I'm not allowed to have an opinion. But I also think that, he isn't the same profile. And so we struggle for balance a little bit there. So that's the one position that maybe I'd look at. I heard someone say, and I can't remember who it was off the top of my head, that we should go and get someone for the left side, and that's still the position that's upgradable. I mean, I get it. Like, I think on paper it's a position that's upgradable, but Leandro Trossard's been outstanding this year. I didn't think he was very good at Bournemouth, Gabriel Martinelli, that is, but he's had a really good season as well. So I'm not worried. I'm not worried at all. Are Arsenal active in this window? Probably, in the sense of they're scouring the market, keeping their ear close to the ground, and will assess any potential opportunities that present themselves. But are they active in the sense of they've identified a target and they're going to move to make that deal happen in this window? I very, very much doubt it. That's based on the feeling I have and based on the conversations that I've had. So yeah, expecting the world this window, you're wrong. Hopeful that maybe we'll get something over the line, that's fine, but I wouldn't get too carried away. And I just think what our focus needs to be right now is obviously the obvious, picking up results, right? But working on some of the players that we've had come back from long-term absences and injuries, and protecting the right players at the right times for when we get to that real business end, and making sure that they peak at the right time. I feel like one of the things that Manchester City have done so much better than us in recent years is make sure they peak at the right time, versus us, who have maybe in seasons gone by peaked a little bit too early, and then not had the gas to get to that finish line. I think this season, right, in an ideal world, had everybody been fit, we would have cruised a little bit more than we have. I think a lot of the games have felt tense. A lot of the games have felt, really kind of taxing. But I think that's in part been because of the absences we've had. Now, rather than sit there and worry about the toll that's taken, I think what we have to do is actually commend the team for getting past those difficult periods in the position that we are today, 6 points clear at the top of the Premier League. And we're going to preview the Liverpool game tomorrow, but I really do feel that if we can win that, that would be absolutely huge. And if we can win that, then, as I said, I think on yesterday's episode, or I said it on Guns and Yellow Ribbons, I beg your pardon, I said we'd be well on our way. We wouldn't have got there yet, but we'd be well on our way. So yeah, let's see how that goes. Right, look, going to take a really short pause. And when I come back, I'm going to take your thoughts and questions from the live chat. So get your questions into the live chat. I'd love to hear from you. If you haven't done so already, guys, leave a like on the video, subscribe, and all the rest of it. Check us out on Patreon as well, patreon.com/The Chronicles of a Gooner. And if any of our regular listeners are interested in becoming mods, I had a couple of messages with regards to that yesterday. Just tag me if you can in the comments section after this video ends, and then I'll get in touch with a few of you and we'll do that, because I don't want this chat to become carnage. Like, I've got no problem with disagreements and debates and conversations, but sometimes you get spam come in, you get people taking it too far, and I don't want this to be a horrible place for Arsenal fans to come and take in Arsenal content, because I feel like when the club is in a good position like it is today, we should be enjoying it. Otherwise, what's the point? If you can't enjoy the good times, what the hell is the point in following football in the first place? Anyway, short pause. We'll be back very, very shortly. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner.
You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner. Like and subscribe.
That's right. Like and subscribe. Good to see so many of you with us. Thank you for being here as always. Remember, there is a January sale on our Patreon offering as well. There's a discount code in the description below. If you go to sign up and you paste that discount code in, that'll give you 25% off your first month's membership. So go over and have a look. Okay. So just a really, really quick summary of those transfer plans. What are they? I don't think there's anything concrete, is basically what I'm saying. In terms of outgoings, and this is interesting because I've had a few people ask me about outgoings. You know, what do we think the situation looks like there? Ethan Nwaneri is a name that keeps cropping up, right? In terms of a potential outgoing, it is my understanding that Arsenal have no intention whatsoever of entertaining any offers for any member of their first team group or squad. People keep suggesting that maybe we should send players out on loan. I don't think so. I think Arsenal are very wary and mindful of what can happen if you get a cluster of injuries, as we've experienced in the past. So I don't think that's going to happen. Okay, let's take some of your questions. Laurie Berry says, Harry, here's an off-topic question. Why don't the players have seat warmers? Are you talking about at the Emirates Stadium? Do you know what? That would be the traditionalists among us would say the game's gone if that type of thing were to be put in place. Look, I think that, you know, and give it another week or so, and this cold snap is gonna move on. It will still be cold, of course. It's England, but it won't be as cold. I just don't think it's that necessary, to be honest with you. I mean, the coats that they've got, the way that they wrap themselves up, they'll be absolutely fine. They'll be absolutely fine. Afsar says, opinion on Arsenal not wearing what Afsar calls the Jinx white shirt in the FA Cup match. Also, will the bad weather impact the next two games? So the weather's not going to impact the game at the Emirates Stadium against Liverpool on Thursday. No chance. We've got undersoil heating. It's a brilliant stadium. There's not going to be any issue, concern with that, I wouldn't imagine. The only thing I can envisage is that if it gets really, really bad in and around the stadium and that disrupts travel, then maybe, as we've seen in the past, the game gets postponed. But I can't see it. I just look at the football schedule and I'm like, where the hell are you going to get these games in? So I think it will go ahead. The Portsmouth game, now that is one to watch out for. And I mentioned it on the Patreon pod we did the other day. Their game at the weekend was postponed because the pitch was frozen. They don't have the facilities at Fratton Park that they do at Emirates Stadium. They don't have the ability to clear the pitch as quickly and as effectively. So that is one to watch out for. And if you're making that trip down to the South Coast at the weekend, sometimes they postpone the game 20 minutes before and there's not a great deal you can do about it. But I would keep an eye on that. Yeah, I certainly would. In terms of not wearing the all-white shirt, now Arsenal are still involved in the No More Red campaign with Adidas, which I think is a good campaign because knife crime in London is a big, big problem and has been for quite some time. I remember when I was growing up, I remember the way that knife crime in London started to come about, like started to take a grip, because I remember sort of in my younger years at secondary school having some trouble at points, but nobody ever pulled out a knife on you. You know, somebody might throw a fist in your face or whatever, tell you to give them your lunch money or your phone or whatever, and you'd end up getting in a bit of a scrap. But there was never any worry or concern or fear about someone pulling out a knife. As I got older, I remember one incident where I was coming home really, really late at night with some friends from a party. And I remember walking along this river that's near where we live because it's a shortcut, and getting stopped by two guys who were significantly older than us and who had a knife. And I remember the difference in feeling. Like, we'd been in those situations before where someone's trying to mug you, if you like, and you're like, oh, well, what's he going to do? Give me a punch, right? And whatever. But I remember the difference in feeling when the knife came out and thinking, oh shit, this is serious. And so, you know, I'm a big advocate for anything that is working towards stopping that, cutting it down, trying to eradicate it, because it's a real big problem in this city that I've grown up in, and obviously that I love. So I think, yeah, that's a great initiative. Not wearing the kit. Look, I for one would quite like to see Arsenal wearing red and white in the FA Cup, and I think it's going to be the first time we're doing that in a long, long time. So yeah, I wasn't a big fan of the kit, but I was okay with it because of what it was representing and what the reason and meaning was behind it. It has been a bit of a jinx. We haven't always played well in it, and so I welcome the return to the famous old red and white, as long as we still do our bit as a football club to help with the No More Red campaign and initiative, because I think it's important. Moving forward, what we got? Rumble doesn't want anyone to leave. Neither do I. Dan Green Taylor says, answer me this question. Henry talks football. Know him. Why is he always talking about Arsenal? I don't know him, mate. I don't know him. I've come across his content before, and I've quite enjoyed it, to be honest. I've seen a couple of videos that he's done about Arsenal, but I'm assuming, based on your question, he's not an Arsenal fan, and that's why you're suggesting that it's a bit strange. I don't know, but look, I don't know the guy. I've seen a couple of his videos. I thought they were quite good, and that's it, really. That's it. Guna R says, do you guys see the glitches that are now more commonly happening in YouTube when you do live streams? I haven't noticed it because I stream through StreamYard. So I log onto the StreamYard platform, press go live, and then it feeds it through to YouTube for me. So I don't really have the YouTube page open much, unless I'm checking in on the likes, which I'm going to do right now, actually. That's a great prompt. And reminder, there's only 66 likes on the board, and there are hundreds of you watching. So what on earth is going on there? Get involved. What else have we got? Lucian's joining us from St. Lucia. I bet the weather's much better there than it is here. What else have we got? He's a Spurs fan. Henry talks football, apparently. Okay. What have we got? Jid says, just on the point about bringing in players, we can't refresh for the sake of refreshing squad, seeing as we're making 8 signings a window. At some point, we need stability. Yeah, I agree. You don't just... We're in a place where we don't need to sign, so I'm not an advocate of signing for the sake of it. I think there are points and there are times in a team's development where signings are required, where refreshment is required, but you can also go too far, can't you? Look at Liverpool. Everybody was lauding that as the best summer ever, and look at how it's destabilized them, and look at the team they are today. I probably shouldn't say this ahead of a game with them, but look at the team they are today versus the team they were last season, for instance. Jid's got a question. We have a 25-man squad, I beg your pardon, of really capable players with a mix of youth and experience. If all players were happy with their roles in the squad, what reason would there be to buy players in the summer? Yeah, I suppose, but you're sort of projecting a best case scenario. Like, if I'm Ethan Nwaneri, am I going to be happy in the summer if I've been left out of the squad multiple times? Probably not. I think right now, because you're mid-season, because Arsenal are going really, really well, and it's difficult to go knock on a manager's door and say, I should be playing more when the team's winning, because basically the manager's decisions are justified, right? He's getting what he wants. He's his team are performing. And yes, you'd rather play on an individual level, but it's very hard to argue with someone who's winning. So, I think mid-season you can sort of cover a lot of the potential problems within the group regarding lack of playing time and all that. But I think when you get to the summer, people rethink, don't they? People start to think a bit more about their futures, and moves become a lot more viable. I would suggest that if we get to the summer going the way we're going with this big squad, where we're having to leave first team players out of the group altogether on match days, I think we will get to the point in the summer where there are a handful of players that are maybe considering what the future holds for them. So I think it's very, very rare that you get to that point with a 25-man squad of everybody going, yep, I absolutely love this and I'm really, really happy. If you win, then for some people that's enough. Maybe I played a bit part, but I was a part of a winning team. Maybe I'm not playing as much football as I would like, but when I finish my career, I'm going to have X, Y, and Z medals on my mantelpiece. There's a lot of factors. But I think it's a bit unrealistic to imagine that there wouldn't be a single player come that point that would be like, maybe I could have played more, or maybe I could have done this, and that differently. I don't know. What else have we got? Let's have a look. Rumble says his friend's a Liverpool fan and he'd genuinely be delighted with the top 4 finish. That says a lot, doesn't it, about how they've fallen this year. This is an interesting one. Afsar says, can you see Unai Emery going to Manchester United? Big rumours. Honestly, no, I can't. I feel like Unai Emery, it's a hard one, right? Because I think that if you put your hand on your heart and you take your club biases away and you try and be as neutral as possible, it's very, very difficult, I'd imagine, to resist the Manchester United job. And I know people keep saying that, the conditions are bad and Man United are not what they used to be. And all of that is absolutely valid and fair. But imagine what your legacy would be if you were the man that turned Manchester United around properly since Alex Ferguson's departure. Like if you were the guy that put them back on the path to becoming the juggernaut and the immovable object and force that they were for all of those years, that would be quite the legacy to leave. With Unai Emery, I think he's one of these managers, right, where give him all the control, all the power, or at least place people around him that are of like mind and of similar thinking, and he'll be fine. You've seen that at Aston Villa. Sporting director that is in line with Unai Emery. Coaching staff selected, handpicked by Unai Emery. Not too much interference on the football side from anybody outside of that. And I think he's done fine. I've got an issue with Manchester United's setup and structure right now. And I had a massive argument about this on TalkSport 2 yesterday with Rory Jennings, because we were talking about Amorim sacking. And do I think Ruben Amorim done an amazing job? No, I don't. Okay? No, I don't. But the problem at Man United is much bigger than Ruben Amorim. And the fact that very, very decorated and well thought of managers have been there over the years post Sir Alex Ferguson and all failed to a degree. Yeah, that says to you that structurally there's a problem. First, it was all blamed on the Glazers and it was all about the people that they'd put in place. And these are not football people and they don't know what they're doing. So Ineos come in as minority shareholders. Ineos take sporting control of the football club. But they've been a car crash. Let's be honest about it. They've been useless. I'm sorry, what have they been in the headlines for? Cutting people's lunches, cutting people's Christmas gifts. These are the things that Ineos have been in the headlines for. Look at some of the decisions they've made, okay? Eric Ten Hag, they interviewed everyone and their dog about replacing him. They kept him in charge anyway, and then 3 months later sacked him. They bring in Ruben Amorim. It's understood that in the summer they were looking at different options, okay? They decided then in the end to stay with Ruben Amorim, threw a couple of £100 million more at the project, and then a few months into the season, sack him again. That is incompetence at the highest level. They bring in sporting directors and all these, posh, fancy titles. And then within months, they move these people on because they're not good enough, or they're disagreeing with Sir Jim Ratcliffe, or they're disagreeing with the Manchester United hierarchy. Why have you brought in Jason? Like Jason Wilcox has come in, and they've clearly picked Jason Wilcox's side here over Ruben Amorim's. Ruben Amorim is a multiple title winning manager, okay, in Portugal, but he brought Sporting Lisbon back to the top of Portuguese football for the first time in ages. He has got some pedigree as a manager. Jason Wilcox did all right with a youth team at Southampton or whatever it was. Did all right in terms of talent identification or running an academy. That is a completely different thing. And fine, you want to go that way in the sort of selection of which side you're going to take. No problem. Do whatever you want. You know more about what's going on behind the scenes than I do or will ever do. But if I was a Man United fan, I'd be looking at them and I'd be saying, you're not any better. You're not any better than the Glazers. And I always said this from day one. I always said that the Glazers still being the majority shareholders meant that Ineos's power was always going to be restricted. It was always going to be restricted. And I think actually they've had more than I expected in terms of that autonomy, but they've just used it really, really badly. Ghost says he deserved the sacking. I'm not even saying that he didn't. Like, I think you could have made a case to sack Ruben Amorim many, many times. The thing I find strange is that now that he's 6th in the league, 3 points off of the Champions League spots, now's when you decide to sack him, rather than when he was in the doldrums in 15th or after he'd lost the Europa League final at the hands of Spurs. It just all seems very, very strange and chaotic and all over the place for me. Rumble says Edu is reportedly getting sacked. Yes, I've seen these reports. Edu has not impressed in his new role. Nottingham Forest are in a rotten place, partly to do with, you have to say, and you can only assume that this is the case looking from the outside in. Well, first of all, we knew that Edu and Nuno Espirito Santo didn't get on. And that was the beginning of the real cracks between Nuno and Nottingham Forest. Nuno's gone. And I know Forest weren't doing great this season prior to his departure, but Nuno's gone. And you've gone and got Sean Dyche, who, for me, has made no difference whatsoever. No difference. You know, I speak to a couple of Forest fans. My colleague at TalkSport, Max Scott, brilliant guy. We're doing a show together on Thursday. In fact, I'm sure we're going to probably cover this and talk about it. But like, he's sort of saying, by the end of the season, we'll see the difference that Sean Dyche has made, blah, blah, blah. But I don't get it. Like, Nuno did incredible things with Forest last year. And what did Edu come in and do? Just disrupt and cause friction. Why? Because he wants to take more control, because he wants to be the big man. Is that why he left Arsenal? Because he felt that it wasn't all about him? Is that what it is? I don't know. Like, I don't want to sit here and character assassinate somebody that I don't know and pretend to know the ins and outs of a very complex situation. But Edu left Arsenal to go and take on this role, and very shortly into that role, we're now hearing rumblings that the leadership of that group of football clubs are not happy with him, that there are considerations around his position. It's all just it's all just a little bit. Look, what will I say to this? The grass isn't always greener, and that's, I think, where I'll leave it. But yeah. Okay, I think I am going to leave it there. I think I'm going to leave it there. Thank you all so much for joining me on today's episode. Really, really do appreciate it. Don't forget to leave a like on the video if you haven't done so already. We're not a million miles off of the 100 likes that I'm after. I'm not even asking a lot. 100, not a lot, these days on YouTube, but we're not there. So hit that like button. It really, really does help. Subscribe to the channel as well if you haven't done so already. Check us out on Patreon and all the rest of it. And I will see you all very, very soon. We're back tomorrow with a pod. We're going to start previewing that Liverpool game. It's a big old game. It's a game that I think will have huge implications. And if we can win it, I'm going to be feeling really, really good about our title prospects. I'll catch you all on Wednesday. See you then. Have a wonderful day. Up the Arsenal. Goodbye.
Chronicles of a Gooner. Like and subscribe. Chronicles of a Gooner. Harry Symeou time. Arsenal. Come on, you Gunners. Arsenal. Chronicles of a Gooner.